Hello, hello. What's up, Jordan? Hey, Shara. It is. Someone's excited. Yeah, I slept like 6, and then I fell asleep again for another like 2 or 3. So I think I would say I've gotten a good amount of sleep last night. I got a nice cup of tea here. Coming from the Brit is insane to say that. It's an orange and ginger tea that I add a little bit of honey in. With tea, some of taste buds ended up hating it. Damn. It's mostly just like a thing for me now for my throat, especially if I do the reading streams. If I have to do a lot of talking like that, to just like ease, like just kind of soothe my throat. That's why it's like ginger and honey and all as well. Really nice. Don't drink warm tea. Coffee with honey? I've never tried that. I do love a good iced coffee as well, though. Like iced tea and iced coffee is also amazing. Like I remember, I was hot coffee is mid. Yeah, it's okay. I prefer something like maybe like a cappuccino or something. If I drink hot coffee, it's like a cappuccino or maybe just an espresso just to wake up. But I remember I was on like an event that happens once a year. I probably will be there again this year. Who knows? Maybe I'll film something. I'll make some pictures. Once a year, there's a city close by that I live that does an event, or there's like a whole day celebrating Japanese culture, because that city has a very high Japanese population. -10. I think that's like close to, okay, -12, I guess. But yeah, so that city has a very big Japanese population here in Germany. So once a year they will do like a whole day celebrating Japanese culture along like a riverbank, and you can just go there for free. They sell a bunch of anime merch there, obviously, because anime is a big part of Japanese stuff, but also a lot of traditional Japanese stuff. Like you can, I think you can like do like kimono try-ons, you can eat Japanese food there and just like experience all kinds of facades of Japanese culture. They also have a stage there with like performers, I think like taiko drums and stuff. Last year they had somebody there that sang one of the Attack on Titan openings, singing live on that stage as well. And at the end of that day, which is usually around 11 p.m., they will have a huge, about 30-minute long, traditionally handmade Japanese fireworks show. And it is amazing to see. I have gone there almost every year since 2013. Obviously during COVID, like 2-3 years in COVID, I set out because they also weren't doing it. But other than that, I have been there at least every year since 2013. I mean, it's close by, so why not? And it's free to go there. But I remember one year I was there, and it was like a pretty hot fucking day. And there was just like a little wagon going around that was just selling cold brew coffee. And I just got myself one, like they even like ground the coffee beans fresh in front of me, and then just cold brewed the coffee. I added like some caramel sauce, and it was one of the best iced coffees I've had in a good while. It was so good. It was amazing. But yeah, I'll probably go there again this year. Maybe I'll take some pictures. I'll talk about it when I'm back. But it's always cool because there's also a lot of cosplayers running around there. The best fried chicken ever. I haven't really tried out the food there yet. But yeah, there's a bunch of cosplayers running around every year there as well. I've seen, like, last year especially, since it was like the first year I went back after COVID and everything. Last year there were so many like Genshin and Honkai cosplayers running around there, which is insane. And they looked so good. I've seen so many good cosplayers. And I think they're starting it again because, well, we're past that now. But what they also did, which was like a fun, I think it just became like a tradition of like the people going there. Since it's like along like a big riverbank, like a sidewalk along the river, and there's like a big patch of just grass where everybody's like camping and hanging out anyway. They started just like standing next to each other in a row, and they would just stand there and give hugs. It's like a full-on, like they just call it the free hug mile. You just go along and just hug everybody that's standing in that line. It's so fucking cool. You just like go from a person to the next, and you just, it takes like a good 20 to 30 minutes to get through if you want to go along that mile. I hate physical touch. I mean, if it's not for you, that's okay. You don't have to do it. Hey, Lily, how are you doing? Obviously, you don't have to do it, Jordan, but one year I actually stood in that mile just next to some random people for like 3 hours, just hugging people for 3 hours straight. It was fun. And the people next to me, they were super fucking cool as well. I just started like conversations with them while we were waiting for people to come, and it was great. One side I had some dudes that we were just talking to, and one of them just all of a sudden, because it was like a big it's like a big hot summer day, they just had like a big like parasol. So they actually gave me some shadow for like some cover with it as well. And then the others on the other side of me, they had like little hand fans, and they just started like blowing the wind towards me as well. So I was just standing there surrounded by people, just, you know, it was fun. It's a lot of fun. And you just get to hug like a bunch of people. I really did. It was great. Shadow from one side, just fresh air from the other. I had fun. And I still ended up coming home with a sunburn because I'm pasty as fuck and get sunburned super fucking easily. But yeah. Oh, it's a very cool event. Imagine catching the sun, right? Yeah, I mean, you live in England. What is the sun to you? Mexico for a month, damn. Didn't burn or tan. Our class, we had a class trip to Italy in 10th grade. First day, our hotel was close to the beach. First day, half the class, me included, came back with a sunburn. But yeah, maybe I'll have some people I can go there with this year again as well. There was the plan that a friend of mine from the UK was supposed to come over, and we go there together, but it seems like the plans might not get through, so they might not be able to come. You know when you start a new game and instantly get humbled? Ben, what are you playing now? Why are you getting humbled in now? But yeah, so maybe I'll get some people together. I would have loved, like, you know, maybe I'll hop into a Discord call while I'm there, and you know, you guys can all just be there together. You could just join the Discord call and I show you around with my cam on around the place. But I can tell you from experience already, guys, that will not be able, that I won't be able to do that. I can go from, like, I can show you the walk from the main station to the river area, but as soon as I get close to the river and as soon as I'm in the like in the mass of people, my the reception is just gone and I won't have internet, so I wouldn't be able to show you guys. Sadly, but I would love to. You know, it would be cool one day or so, like 1 year or something, to do like an IRL stream around there if you know, the internet would be better. Just like me running around there. So many phones in the area. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I get why. It's just unfortunate. Because last year, I wanted to meet up with a friend there as well that is from a different part of Germany that was visiting for it. And it took us like a good hour to find each other because it's a big area. It's hundreds, maybe even thousands of people there with no internet. Or you try to like find a little spot somewhere a bit further away so you can have a little bit of signal so you can write them. They're like, oh, I'm over here. Where are you? Where can we meet up? And it took us like a good hour to find each other then. But yeah, maybe I'll have some people to go there with next year. Or this year. And maybe I'll stay until the fireworks show again, because the fireworks show is always like the big highlight. It's like the best part about it. It's so bad. My skin doesn't sunburn easily, and I need to be very mindful for everyone with me when we go out. My friend got sunburnt last time we went swimming. Aww. The thing is, I usually don't really mind getting sunburnt too much, especially if it's just like a mild light sunburn. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely go swimming with you, Lily. That would be fun. You know how much I love swimming. Swimming is a lot of fun. Oh God. Like, talking about that event also reminded me, there was this one year I was there with some other friends from a different part of Germany. And usually I think the tents, because they set up a lot of tents for like the shops and all, they close a bit earlier than when the fireworks show happens and all, because like, I think they close around like around 8 or 9 p.m. and then the fireworks show is at 11 or at 10 into 11. I forgot exactly the time, but yeah. The point was, it was close to the closing time for them, and I was thinking about like, maybe I actually want to buy like a little figurine or something. And there was like a big figure store tent close by to where we were all just like hanging out that day. So I went over there, I was skimming through, just browsing through what they had, and I found this like really cute like Christmas Miku for like 35 or something that I wanted to buy. So after like looking for like 10-15 minutes or something, I went up to the cash register and was about to ask them like, yo, if the figure is still available, if I can get it. And right then and there, in front of my face, they fucking closed down the tent and said, sorry, we're closed now. Bro, I was legit about to give you 35 bucks for a figurine. Why the fuck are you closing right in front of my face? I already had it all figured out. I know which one I wanted, and they just fucking closed in front of me. I never got my Miku figure. Sad. I never ended up getting it. But hey. Now I got some Gundams in the background, I guess. Yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely gonna try and make a bunch of pictures. Take a bunch of pictures and then do something similar to what I did when I went to the concert and just like show some of the pictures and talk about how the day was and how everything went. You know, because I think it'd be cool. It's just like a nice little just chill chatting stream with you guys. Why not? Mm-hmm. And then I'm still on the fucking Honkai grind. I barely played today because I was actually outside for a while. But yeah, I'm still on the grind for getting Huohuo and Honkai. I should be getting her for sure if I continue on the way I am right now. I'm getting close to pity again. Touched grass? I did, yeah. For once. It was fun. It was nice just going out on a walk, especially now when the weather is getting better again. I'm also thinking about maybe sometime this week I will go out again. I live close to like a artificially made canal for like transporting goods and all, and close to the canal is a waffle factory, and I could just buy waffles straight from the factory. Or, you know, you can even buy the broken ones there that they cannot distribute to the big stores, obviously because it's broken and all, but they're still good. They're obviously just like visual, like broken and all. They're still good waffles. So they sell those there, and you know, just buying like a bag or two of those and just sitting here eating waffles. Always love me good waffles from there. They're really good. And like, I mean, hey, if I can get them straight from the source, straight from where they made. Ain't that great? Yeah, so I think today we can actually start a bit earlier with the book instead of having like a fucking 2-hour yapping session like always. But this book is getting super intense. I'm really enjoying it, but also like we are getting to a part now where it seems like their plan has been going somewhat well in the start, but something is going down now. Everywhere where they are right now, because they're split up, but everywhere seems to be something seems to be happening. I think wasn't it like was it like Jesper, Wylan, and Matthias and all, they're currently I think at a shootout at their hideout, and then Inej and Nina, they're setting up like the whole silo sabotage thing, and Inej is getting pulled into one of the silos from something. So a lot of shit is happening right now, and I have no idea where this is going, but I am super excited to continue with it because it is such a fun book to read. So I guess we're just gonna start already here today. We're at chapter 18 now. As his perspective. Alright. Getting into the house wasn't nearly as difficult as it should have been, and it put Kaz on edge. Was he giving Vanek too much credit? The man thinks like a merch, Kaz reminded himself as he tucked his cane beneath his arm and eased down a drain pipe. He still believes his money keeps him safe. The easiest points of entry were the windows of the house's top floor, accessible only from the roof. Wylan wasn't up to the climb or the descent, so Kaz would go first and get him inside via the lower floors. 2 good legs and he still needs a ladder, Kaz muttered, ignoring the twinge his leg gave in agreement. He wasn't thrilled to be on another job with Wylan, but Wylan's knowledge of the house and his father's habits would be useful if any surprises cropped up. And he was best equipped to handle the auric acid. Kaz thought of Inej, perched on the roof of the Church of Barter, the city lights glinting below. This is what I'm good at, so let me do my job. Fine. He would let them all do their jobs. Nina would hold up her end of the mission, and Inej had seemed confident enough in her ability to walk the wire. With little rest and without the security of a net. Would she have told you if she was afraid? Is that something you've ever shown? Is that something you've ever shown sympathy for? Kaz shook the thought from his mind. If Inej didn't doubt her abilities, then he shouldn't either. Besides, if they wanted that seal for Nina's darling refugees, he had his own problems to contend with. Luckily, Vanek's security system wasn't one of them. Inej's surveillance had indicated that the locks were Schuyler work. They were complicated little bastards, but once you'd cracked one, you'd crack them all. Kaz had gotten on very friendly terms with a locksmith in Klokstad who firmly believed Kaz was the son of a wealthy merchant who highly valued his collection of priceless snuff boxes. Consequently, Kaz was always first to know exactly how the rich of Katahdin were keeping their property secure. Kaz had once heard Hubrecht Mohen, master thief of Pilj, extemporizing on the beauty of a quality log while drunk on brown lager in the Crow Club. A lock is like a woman, he'd said blearily. You have to seduce it into giving up its secrets. He was one of Pascal's old cronies, happy to talk about better days and big scams, especially if it meant he didn't have to do much work. And it was exactly the kind of muddled wisdom those old cadgers loved to spout. Sure, a lock was like a woman. It was also like a man in anyone or anything else. If you wanted to understand it, you had to take it apart and see how it worked. If you wanted to master it, you had to learn it so well you could put it back together. The lock on the window gave way in his hands with a satisfying click. He slid open the sash and climbed inside. The tiny rooms on the top floor of Vanek's house were devoted to the servants' quarters. All of the staff were currently occupied below with Vanek's guests. Some of the richest members of the Kurt Merchant Council were filling their bellies in the first floor dining room, probably listening to Vanek's tale of woe about his son's kidnapping and commiserating about the gangs controlling the barrel. But from the smell in the air, Cass suspected ham was on the menu. He opened the door and quietly made his way to the staircase, then proceeded cautiously down to the second floor. He knew Vanek's house from when he and Inesh had heisted at the Capel Oil. And he always liked returning to a home or a business he'd had cause to visit before. It wasn't just a familiarity. It was as if by returning, he laid claim to a place. We know each other's secrets, the house seemed to say. Welcome back. A guard stood at attention at the end of the carpeted hallway in front of what Kaz knew was Alice's door. Kaz checked his watch. There was a brief pop and a flash of light from the window at the end of the hall. Hey, Rose. No, you. How are you doing? At least Wylan was punctual. The guard went to investigate and Cass slipped down the hall in the other direction. Oh, also, I forgot to do something. I hope you're feeling better, Rose. And, I'm sorry your power went out yesterday. There we go. Okay. Where were we? Yeah. Cass checked his watch. There was a brief pop and a flash of light from the window at the end of the hall. At least Wylan was punctual. The guard went to investigate and Cass slipped down the hall in the other direction. He ducked into Wylan's old room, which was now clearly intended to be the nursery. By the light from the street below, he could see its walls and had been decorated with an elaborate seascape mural. The bassinet was shaped like a tiny sailing ship, complete with flags and a captain's wheel. Vanek was really embracing this new air thing. Cass worked the lock on the nursery window and pushed it open, then secured the rope ladder and waited. He heard a loud thud and winced. Apparently Wylan had made it over the garden wall. Hopefully, he hadn't broken the containers of auric acid and burned a hole through himself or the rose bushes. A moment later, Cass heard panting and Wylan rounded the corner, bustling along like a harried goose. When he was below the window, he tucked his satchel carefully against his body and climbed up the rope ladder, sending it swaying wildly left and right. Cass helped him through the window, then pulled the ladder in and closed the sash. They'd exit the same way. Wylan looked around the nursery with wide eyes, then just shook his head. Cass checked the hall. The guard was back at his post in front of Alice's door. Well, Kaz whispered to Wylan. It's a slow burning fuse, said Wylan. The timing is imprecise. The seconds ticked by. Finally, another pop sounded. The guard returned to the window, and Kaz gestured for Wylan to follow him along the hallway. Kaz made quick work of the lock on Venek's office door, and they were inside in moments. When Kaz had broken into the house to steal the Capelle, he'd been surprised by the office's plush trappings. He'd expected severe Murcher restraint, but the woodwork was heavily ornamented with swags of laurel leaves. A chair, the size of a throne, upholstered in crimson velvet, loomed over the wide, glossy desk. Behind the painting, Wylan whispered, gesturing to a portrait of one of the Venek ancestors. Which member of your hallowed line is that one supposed to be? Martin Venek, my great-great-grandfather. He was a ship's captain, the first to land at Eames Chin and navigate the river inland. He brought back a shipload of spices and used the profits to buy a second ship. That's what my father told me anyway. That was the start of the Vanek fortune. And will be the end of it. Kaz shook out a bone light and the green glow filled the room. Quite a resemblance, he said, glancing at the gaunt face, the high brow, and the stern blue eyes. Wylan shrugged. Except for the red hair. I always took after my father, and his father, and all the Vaneks. Well, till now. They each took a side of the painting and lifted it from the wall. Look at you, Kaz crooned as Vanek's safe came into view. Safe didn't even seem like the right word. It was more like a vault. A steel door set into a wall that had itself been reinforced with more steel. The lock on it was Kirch made, but like nothing Kaz had ever seen before. A series of tumblers that could be reset with a random combination of numbers every day. Impossible to crack in less than an hour, but if you couldn't open the door, you just had to make a new one. The sound of raised voices filtered up to the floor below. From the floor below, the Murchers were finding something to disagree about. Kaz wouldn't have minded the chance to eavesdrop on a conversation. Let's go, he said. The clock is ticking. Wylan removed 2 jars from his satchel. On their own, they were nothing special. But if Wylan was right, once they were combined, the resulting compound would burn through everything except the balsa glass container. Wylan took a deep breath and held the jars away from his body. Stay back, he said, and poured the contents of one jar into the other. Nothing happened. Well, Kaz said, move, please. Wylan took a balsa glass pipette and drew out a small amount of liquid, letting it trickle down the front of the safe's steel door. Instantly, the metal began to dissolve, giving off a noisy crackle that seemed uncomfortably loud in the small room. A sharp metallic smell filled the air, and both Kaz and Wylan covered their faces with their sleeves. Trouble in a bottle, Kaz marveled. Wylan worked steadily, carefully transferring the auric acid from the jar into the steel, the hole in the safe door growing steadily larger. Pick up the pace, Kaz said, eyeing his watch. If I spill a single drop of this, it will burn straight to the floor and onto my father's dinner guests. Take your time. The acid consumed the metal in rapid bursts, burning quickly and only gradually tapering off. Hopefully, it wouldn't eat through too much of the wall after they left. He didn't mind the idea of the office collapsing on Vanek and his guests, but not before the night's business was complete. After what felt like a lifetime, the hole was big enough to reach through. Kaz shone the bone light inside and saw a ledger, stacks of Kruger, and a little velvet bag. Kaz drew the bag from the safe, wincing when his arm made contact with the edge of the hole. The steel was still hot enough to singe. He took the contents of the bag into his leather-clad palm, a fat gold ring with an engraving of a red laurel and Van Eyck's initials. He tucked the ring into his pocket and then grabbed a couple of stacks of Kruger and handed one over to Wylan. Kaz almost laughed at the expression on Wylan's face. Does this bother you, Merchling? I don't enjoy feeling like a thief. After everything he's done? Yes. So much for righteous. You do realize we're stealing your money. It's said the same thing, but I'm sure my father wrote me out of his will as soon as Alice became pregnant. It doesn't mean you're any less entitled to it. I don't want it. I just don't want him to have it. What a luxury to turn your back on luxury. Kaz shoved the Kruger into his pocket. How would I run an empire? Wylan said, tossing the pipette into the safe to smolder. I can't read a ledger or a bill of landing. I can't write a purchase order. My father is wrong about a lot of things, but he's right about that. I'd be a laughingstock. So pay someone to do that work for you. Would you? Asked Wylan, his chin jutting forward. Trust someone with the knowledge, with a secret that could destroy you? Yes, thought Kaz without hesitation. There's one person I would trust. One person I know would never use my weaknesses against me. He thumbed quickly through the ledger and said, when people see a cripple walking down the street leaning on his cane, what do they feel? Wylan looked away. People always did when Kaz talked about his limp, as if he didn't know he was what he was or how the world saw him. They feel pity. Now what do they think when they see me coming? They feel pity. Now what do they think when they see me coming? Wylan's mouth quirked up at the corner. They think they'd better cross the street. Kaz tossed the ledger back in the safe. You're not weak because you can't read. You're weak because you're afraid of people seeing your weakness. You're letting shame decide who you are. Help me with the painting. They lifted the portrait back into place over the gaping hole in the safe. Martin Van Eyck glared down at them. Think on it, Wylan, Kaz said as he straightened the frame. It's shame that lines my pockets. Shame that keeps the barrel teeming with fools ready to put on a mask just so they can have what they want with no one the wiser for it. We can endure all kinds of pain. It's shame that eats men whole. His words. Wise words, said a voice from the corner. Kaz and Wylan whirled. The lamps flared brightly, flooding the room with light, and a figure emerged from a niche in the opposite wall that hadn't been there a moment before. Pekka Rollins. Ain't no way that he's here now. What? What? Nah. How does he? I mean, like, okay. Unexpected, but okay. Pekka Rollins, a smug grin on his ruddy face, bracketed by a cluster of dime lions all carrying pistols, saps, and axe handles. Casbreaker, Rollins mocked. Philosopher Crook. And the chapter just ends there. What? Now we're jumping to Matthias. Hold the fuck up. Yo, Doc, what's up? Hope you're having a good day. Stay down, Matthias shouted at Kuwei. The shoe boy flattened himself to the floor. A second rattle of gunfire shook the air, shattering another of the stained glass portholes. Either they're interested in wasting a lot of bullets or those are warning shots, said Jesper. In a low crouch, Matthias edged to the other side of the tomb and peered through the thin crack in the stone. We're surrounded, he said. The people standing between Black Veil's graves were a far cry from the stopwatch officers he'd expected to see. In the flickering light of lanterns and torches, Matthias glimpsed plaid and paisley, striped vests, and checkered coats. The uniform of the Barrow. They carried equally motley weapons, guns, knives as long as a man's forearm, and wooden bats. I can't make out their tattoos, said Jesper. I'm pretty sure that's Doughty up front. My hands are oiled up in brake fluid and slight amounts of blood. I replaced the rear brake pads and bleed the brakes on my mother's vehicle. Damn. Please take care of yourself, dog. Take care of your hands. Doughty. Matthias searched his memory, then remembered the man who had escorted them to Pekka Rollins when Cass had sought alone. Dime lions. A lot of them. What do they want? Kuwei said tremulously. Matthias could hear people laughing, shouting, and beneath it all, a low, fevered buzz that came when soldiers knew they had the advantage. When they scented the promise of bloodshed in the air. A cheer arose from the crowd as a dime lion sprinted forward and hurled something toward the tomb. It soared through one of the broken windows and hit the floor with a clang. Green gas burst from its sides. Matthias yanked a horse blanket from the floor and threw it over the canister. He shoved it back through the porthole as another stutter of gunfire split the air. His eyes burned, tears streaming down his cheeks. Now the buzz was cresting. The dime lions surged forward. Jesper squeezed off a shot and one of the advancing crew fell, his torch extinguished in the damp ground. Again and again, Jesper fired, his aim unerring as dime lions toppled. Their ranks broke as they scattered for cover. Keep lining up, boys, Jesper said grimly. Come on out, bellowed Doughty from behind the grave. You can't shoot us all. Can't hear you, shouted Jesper. Come closer. We smashed your boats. You got no way off this island except us. So come quiet, or we'll bring just your heads back to the Barrow. Watch out, said Matthias. Doughty had been distracting them. Another canister crashed through a window, and then another. The catacomb, Matthias roared, and they raced for the opposite end of the tomb, cramming themselves into the passage and sealing the stone door behind them. Jesper tore off his shirt and shoved it into the gap between the door and the floor. The dark was almost complete, and for a moment, there was only the sound of the three of them coughing and gasping, trying to dislodge the gas from their lungs. Then Jesper shook out a bone light, and their faces were lit by an eerie green glow.
How the hell did they find us?
He asked. How many chapters are? We're at like 18 now. It doesn't matter, said Matthias. There was no time to think about how Black Veil had been compromised. All he knew was that if Pekka Rollins had sent his gang after them, Nina might be in danger too. What are our assets?
Wylan left us with a bunch of those violet bombs in case we ran into trouble with the Shu soldiers.
And I've got a couple of flash bombs too.
Kuei? I have nothing,
he said. You have that damn travel pack, said Jesper.
There's nothing useful in there?
Kuei clutched the bag to his chest.
My notebooks,
he said with a sniff.
What about the leavings from Wylan's work?
Said Matthias. No one had bothered to clear anything away.
It's just some of the stuff he used to make the fireworks for Goodmid Bridge,
said Jesper. A flurry of shouts came from outside. They're going to blow the door to the tomb, said Matthias. It was what he would have done if he'd wanted prisoners instead of casualties. Though he felt certain Kuei was the only one of the Dime Lions that the Dime Lions cared about extracting alive.
There have to be at least 30 toughs out there looking out to skin our hides, said Jesper. There's only one way out of the tomb. We're on a damn island. We're done for.
Maybe not, Matthias said, considering the ghostly green glow of the bone light. Though he did not have Cass's gift for scheming, he'd been raised in the military. There might be a way out of this.
Are you crazy? The Dime Lions have to know how badly outnumbered we are.
True, said Matthias. But they don't know that two of us are Grisha.
They thought they were hunting a scientist, not an Inferni, and Jesper had long kept his fabricated powers a secret.
Yeah, two Grisha with barely any training, said Jesper. A loud boom sounded, shaking the tomb walls and sending Matthias careening into the corners. Into the others.
They're coming,
cried Kuei, but no footsteps sounded. There was another series of shouts from outside. They didn't use a big enough charge, said Matthias. They want you alive, so they're being cautious. We have one more chance. Kuei, how much heat can you produce from a flame?
I can make a fire burn more intensely, but it's hard to maintain.
Matthias remembered the violet flames licking over the body of the flying Shu soldier, inextinguishable. Wylan had said they burned hotter than ordinary fire.
Give me one of those bombs,
he told Jesper.
I'm going to blow the back of the catacomb.
Why? To make them think we're blasting away out of the other side, Matthias said, setting the bomb at the farthest end of the stone passage.
Are you sure you're not going to blow us up with it?
No, admitted Matthias. But unless you have some brilliant idea. Shooting as many people as possible before we die is not an option. Jesper shrugged.
In that case, go on.
Kuei, as soon as the bomb goes off, get to the front door as fast as you can. The gas should have diffused, but I want you to run. I'll be right behind you, lending cover. Do you know the tomb with the big broken mast?
To the right?
Yes, head straight for that. Jesper,
grab up all those powders that Wyland left and do the same. Why? Matthias lit the fuse. You can follow my orders, or you can ask your questions of the Dime Lions. Now, get down. He shoved them both against the wall, shielding their bodies as a thunderous boom sounded from the end of the tunnel. Run! They burst through the catacomb door. Matthias kept a hand on Kuwei's shoulder, urging him along as they raced through the remnants of the green gas. Remember, head straight to the broken mast. He kicked open the tomb door and lobbed a flash bomb into the air. It exploded in shards of diamond white light, and Matthias ran for cover in the trees, blasting at the Dime Lions with his rifle as he dodged through the graves. The Dime Lions returned fire, and Matthias dove beneath a slump of moss-covered stones. He saw Jesper charge through the tomb door, revolvers blazing, cutting toward the broken stone mast. Matthias lobbed the last flash bomb into the air as Jesper rolled to the right, and the roar of gunfire erupted like a storm breaking as the Dime Lions forgot all promise of discipline or offer of reward and let fly with everything they had. They might have been ordered to keep Kuwei alive, but they were barrel rats, not trained soldiers. On his belly, Matthias crawled through the dirt of the graveyard. Everyone unhurt? He asked as he reached the broken mast of the mausoleum. Breath, but still breathing, said Jesper. Kuwei nodded, though he was shaking badly. Fantastic plan, by the way. How's being pinned down here better than being pinned down in the tomb? Did you get Wyland's powders? What was left of them, said Jesper. He emptied his pockets, revealing 3 packets. Matthias chose one at random. Can you manipulate those powders? Jesper shifted uneasily. Yeah, I guess. I did something similar at the ice court. Why? Why? In the Driskella, he would have been brigged for insubordination. Black Veil is supposedly haunted, yes. We're going to make some ghosts. Matthias glanced at the edge of the mausoleum. They're moving in. I need you to follow my orders and stop asking questions, both of you. No wonder you and Cass don't get along, Jesper muttered. In as few words as he could, Matthias explained what he intended now and when they reached the island's shore, assuming his plan worked. I've never done this before, said Kuwei. Jesper winked at him. That's what makes it exciting. Ready? Said Matthias. He opened the packet, and Jesper raised his hands, and with a light whump, the powder rose in a cloud. It hung suspended in the air as if time had slowed. Jesper focused, sweat beading on his forehead, then shoved his hands forward. The cloud thinned and rolled over the heads of the Dime Lions, then caught in one of their torches in a burst of green. The men surrounding the torch holder gasped. Kuwei, directed Matthias, and the shoe boy lifted his hands, and the flame from the green torch cracked along the handle, snaking up the arm of its bearer in a sinuous coil of fire. The man screamed, tossing the torch away, falling to the ground and rolling in an attempt to extinguish the flames. Bentley, thank you for the lurk. I appreciate it. Yo, their plan is sick, though. Keep going, Matthias said, and Kuwei flexed his fingers, but the green flames went out. I'm sorry, said Kuwei. Make another, demanded Matthias. There was no time for cassetting. Kuwei thrust his hands out again, and one of the Dime Lions' lanterns exploded, this time in a whirl of yellow flame. Kuwei shrank back as if he hadn't intended to use as much force. Don't lose your focus, Matthias urged. Kuwei curled his wrists and the flames of the lantern rose in a serpentine arc. Hey, said Jesper, not bad. He opened another packet of powder and tossed its contents into the air, then arced his arms forward, sending it to meet Kuwei's flame. The twisting thread of fire turned a deep, shimmering crimson. Strontium chloride, the sharpshooter murmured. My favorite. Kuwei flexed one of his fists and another stream of fire joined the flames of the lantern. Then another, forming a thick-bodied snake that undulated over Black Veil, ready to strike. Ghosts! One of the Dime Lions shouted. Don't be daft, replied another. Matthias watched the red serpent coil and uncoil in trails of flame, feeling the old fear rise in him. He'd grown comfortable with Kuwei, and yet it had been Inferni fire that consumed his family's village in a border skirmish. Somehow he'd forgotten the power this boy held within him. It was a war, he reminded himself. And this one is too. The Dime Lions were distracted, but it wouldn't last long. Spread the fire to the trees, Matthias said, and with a little grunt, Kuwei threw his arms wide. The green leaves fought the onslaught of devouring flame, and then caught. They got Grisha, shouted Doughty. Flank them! To the shore, Matthias said. Now! They sprinted past gravestones and broken stone saints. Kuwei, get ready. We need everything you have. They skittered down the bank, tumbling into the shallows. Matthias grabbed the violet bombs and smashed them open on the hulls of the wrecked boats. Slithering violet flame engulfed them. It had an eerie, almost creamy quality. I don't think I've ever heard fire be described as creamy. But okay. Creamy fire, guys. We got creamy fire, I guess. Fuck, where was I now? It had an eerie, almost creamy quality. Matthias had navigated to and from Black Veil enough times to know this was the shallowest part of the canal. The long stretch of sandbar where boats were most likely to run aground, but the opposite shore seemed impossibly far away. Kuwei, he commanded, praying that the shoe boy was strong enough, hoping he could manage the plan Matthias had outlined bare moments earlier. Make a path. Kuwei shoved his hands forward and the flames poured into the water, sending up a massive plume of steam. At first, all Matthias could see was a wall of billowing white. Then the steam parted slightly and he saw fish flopping in the mud. Happy to see you. I appreciate the lurk, Slothy. I hope you're doing alright. The steam parted slightly and he saw fish flopping in the mud, crabs skittering over the exposed bottom of the canal as violet flames licked at the water to either side. All the saints and the donkeys they riding on, Jesper said in an odd breath. Kuwei, you did it! Matthias turned back to the island and opened fire into the trees. Hurry, he shouted, and they ran over a road that had not been there moments before, bolting for the other side of the canal. for the streets and alleys that might lend them cover. Unnatural, a voice clamored in his head. No, Matthias thought. Miraculous. You do realize you just let your own little Grisha army, Jesper said as they hauled themselves over to the mud and hurried through those shadowed streets towards Sweet Reef. He had an uncomfortable thought. Through Jesper and Kuwei, he had wielded Grisha power, and yet Matthias did not feel tainted or somehow marked by it. He remembered what Nina had said about the construction of the ice court, that it must be the work of Grisha and not the work of Djel. What if both things were true? What if Djel worked through these people? Unnatural. The word had come so easily to him, a way to dismiss what he did not understand, to make Nina and her kind less than human. But what if behind the righteousness that drove the Riskelle was something less clean or justified? What if it wasn't even fear or anger, but simply envy? What did it mean to aspire to serve Djel, only to see his power in the gifts of others? To know you could never possess those gifts yourself. That is definitely an interesting way to see that. Huh. The Driskella gave their oath to Fjorda, but to their god as well. If they could be made to see miracles where once they'd seen abomination, what else might change? I've been made to protect you. His duty to his god, his duty to Nina. Maybe they were the same thing. What if Djel's hand had raised the waters the night of the wrathful storm that wrecked the Driskella ship and bound Matthias and Nina together? Matthias was running through the streets of a foreign city, into dangers he did not know, but for the first time since he'd looked into Nina's eyes and seen his own humanity reflected back at him, the war inside him quieted. We'll find a way to change their minds, she'd said. All of them. He would locate Nina. They would survive this night. They would free themselves of this damp, misbegotten city. And then, well, then they would change the world. Damn. It's the end of chapter 19. This is getting really intense now with all the fucking fights happening everywhere. Fucking Pekka Rollins standing in front of Kaz in Van Eck's fucking office. What the fuck? But now we're going back to Inej in chapter 20. Which is crazy. It is! I did not expect fucking Pekka Rollins and his dime lines to just show up all of a sudden. But I mean, in a way, I guess he knew about some of the things that were going on because the cast did ask Pekka for help. This book is amazing, Slothy. I feel like considering like this is what we have left to read, like all these pages here, I should probably go into town again soon and see if I can actually pick up the other copy of the next book that we're about to read after this. The Fragile Threads of Power.
Cass took his watch in chapter 1, right? Alright, now we're back on Inej, which she is currently being dragged into the silos she climbed. Next book. Yeah, I mean, this book is amazing, but I also cannot wait to see what happens with fucking Lila and Kel and their fucking sequel trilogy. Cause like, goddamn, I love the Shades of Magic trilogy, and I need more Kel and Lila. And I mean, even the other like book we read from Schwab before, the Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, was amazing. It was crazy. It was a short book. Oh yeah, I did hear something about I did see you posting something about a book club book you were reading. That's cool. I who have never known men. Interesting title. I'm very happy I have known men. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't know me. I'm a man. Super dystopian and a mystery. Better to know men. Well, it depends. Some men are questionable to know. But I'm glad I've gotten to know you, Slothy. Over the year, we've known each other now. All right. Chapter 20. Inej twisted, breaking the claw-like grip on the back of her neck. This guy, he's a go. I try to be, yeah. She scrambled. It's so hot in your room. Maybe you have to switch to my room then, Rose. She scrambled to stop her fall. Her legs found purchase on the silo roof, and she yanked herself free, pushing away from the hatch. She rocked back on her heels, knives already released from their sheaths, deadly weight in her hands. Her mind could not quite make sense of what she was seeing. A girl stood before her on the silo roof, gleaming like a figure carved of ivory and amber. Her tunic and trousers were the color of cream, banded in ivory leather and embroidered in gold. Her auburn hair hung in a thick braid laced with a glint of jewels. She was tall and slender, maybe a year or two older than Inej. Inej's first thought was of the Kergood soldiers that Nina and the others had seen on the West Stave, but this girl didn't look Shu. "Hello, Wraith," the girl said. "Do I know you?" "I am Dunyasha, the White Blade, trained by the sages of Amra Jen, the greatest assassin of this age." "Doesn't ring a bell." "I'm new to this city," the girl acknowledged, "but I'm told you are a legend on those filthy streets. I confess I thought you'd be taller." Damn, making a fucking short comment now.
Not the right time. Not the right time for that, girl. What business? Inesh asked. The traditional curt greeting at that beginning of any meeting, though it felt absurd to say it 20 stories in the air. I will murder Dunyasha. I will help you. Dunyasha smiled. It seemed practiced, like the smiles Inesh had seen girls give customers in the gilded menagerie parlor. Short girl would cut your throat. But I was so close to make a short joke as well, being like, if she can even reach it, but yeah, no. I'm good. No. I don't mean it though. I don't mean it. Short people are great. I love them just as much as tall people. Maybe even more. There are a lot of great short people in my chat. There's a lot of amazing short people in my chat. I'm short-sighted, short temper, short on patience. But you're also amazing and cute and beautiful and a great friend. And nothing short of amazing. My biddies are tall as fuck though. They are. I mean, Shara, so are you. This goes to you as well. Even though I've only known you for a short time, I would count you in there as well. This ain't about me. I'll make it about any one of you in the chat. You all are amazing. I wouldn't be doing this here without if it weren't for you guys. So you're all amazing. Two hotties in a trench coat. Let's go. Damn. Maybe then you'll be tall enough for me to see eye to eye to me. Streamers being nice. Time to leave chat. Okay, bye, Jordan. I'm always nice to chat. But yeah, no, obviously all of y'all are amazing. You will be short too when you're dead. Or we just chop him now? Well, then we wouldn't have more reading streams though. But I wouldn't mind if you two would come over. Hello, hello, Sorrow. How is it going? I hope you're having a beautiful day. Where were we? Oh yeah. A crude greeting for a crude city. She flicked her fingers carelessly toward the skyline, acknowledging and dismissing Catadum with a single gesture. What are we doing? We're reading a book right now. It's called Crooked Kingdom. And I'm talking to the chat. Then finish reading, then we chop. Well, good thing is, Slothie, there will always be another book next week. So, are you letting me finish the current book we're reading, or let me finish reading in general, which would mean no end? You gotta be a bit more specific. Are you saying that you are my queen? Slothy, is that's what you're insinuating here? Don't you know by now I'm royalty? Short queen. You are. Absolutely. A short queen. Alright. It's, need a short king. Well, I might be a king to some people, but I'm not short, sadly. I'm a bit too tall for that. You a short corpse. See, so you'd go with a corpse, I see. All right. I see your preferences. I will compromise to make things happen. Shows my flexibility. You could show your flexibility in a different way as well if you want. Alright, can we continue with the book now? Book. All right. Oh yeah. She flicked her fingers carelessly toward the skyline, acknowledging and dismissing Catadum with a single gesture. You're the one making chat, sussy. It's debatable sometimes. For this one, yeah, I'll take it. Like I would take you, but yeah. Fate brought me here. And does fate pay your wages? Ines asked, sizing her up. She did not think this ivory and amber girl had scaled a silo just to make her acquaintance. In a fight, Dunyasha's height would give her a longer reach, but it might impact her balance. Had Vanek sent her? And if so, had he sent someone after Nina too? She spared the briefest glance below, but could see nothing in the deep shadows of the silos. Who do you work for? Knives appeared in Dunyasha's hands, their edges gleaming brightly. Our work is death, she said, and it is holy. An exultant light filled her eyes, the first true spark of life Inesh had seen in her. And then she attacked. Inesh was startled by the girl's speed. Dunyasha moved like painted light, as if she were a blade herself, cutting through the darkness, her knife slicing in tandem, left, right. Inesh let her body respond, dodging more on instinct than anything else, backing away from her opponent, but avoiding the silo's edge. She feinted left and slipped past Dunyasha, managing the first thrust of her own. Dunyasha whirled and evaded the attack easily, weightless as sun gliding the surface of a lake. Inesh had never seen someone fight this way, as if she were moving to music only she could hear. Are you afraid, Wraith? Inesh felt Dunyasha's knife shred through her sleeve. The sting of the blade was like a burning lash. Not too deep, she told herself, unless of course the blade was poisoned. I think you are. You cannot fear death, and be its true emissary. Was the girl mad, or just chatty? Inesh bobbed backward, moving in a circle around the silo's roof. I was born without fear, Dunyasha continued with a happy chuckle. My parents thought I would drown because I crawled into the sea as a baby. Laughing. Perhaps they were worried you would talk yourself to death. Her opponent drove forward with new intensity, and Inesh wondered if the girl had only been toying with her in that first aggressive flurry, feeling for her strengths and weaknesses before she seized the advantage. They exchanged thrusts, but Dunyasha was fresh. Inesh could feel every ache and injury and trial of the last month in her body. The knife wound that had almost killed her, the trip up the incinerator, the days she spent bound in captivity. I confess to disappointment, Dunyasha said as her feet skipped nimbly over the silo roof. I had hoped you might prove a challenge. What do I find? A smudge of a Suli acrobat who fights like a common street thug. It was true. Inesh had learned her technique from boys like Cass and Jesper in the alleys and crooked streets of Caradham. Dunyasha didn't have just one mode of attack. She bent like a reed when required, stalked forward like a prowling cat, retreated like smoke. She had no single style that Inesh could grasp or predict. She's better than me. The knowledge had the taste of rot, as if Inesh had bitten into a tempting fruit and found it foul. It wasn't just a difference in their training. Inesh had learned to fight because she had to if she wanted to survive. She'd wept the night she'd made her first kill. This girl was enjoying herself. Caradham had taught Inesh well. If you couldn't beat the odds, you changed the game. Inesh waited for her opponent to lunge, and then leapt past her onto the wire stretched between the silos. Moving recklessly across it, the wind reached out for her, eager now, sensing opportunity. She considered using the balance pole, but she wanted her hands free. She felt the wire wobble. Impossible. But when she looked back over her shoulder, Dunyasha had followed her out onto the high wire. She was grinning, her white skin glowing as if she'd swallowed the moon. Okay, that was smart of her to go onto the high wire. But still, Dunyasha seems very fucking capable of holding her own on that as well. Dunyasha's hand shot out and Ines gasped as something sharp lodged in her calf. She bent backward, taking the wire in her hands, and flipped her stand so that she was facing her opponent. The girl's wrist snapped out again. Ines felt another bright stab of pain, and when she looked down, she saw a spiked metal star protruding from her thigh. What the fuck? Okay. From somewhere below, she heard shouting, sounds of a fight. Nina. Who or what had Jan van Eyck sent after her? But she could not afford distraction, not on the wire, not faced with this creature. Such an interesting story. It's so good. So I love it. I hear you hoard for the peacock, Dunyasha said as she flung another spike at spiked star at Ines, and another. Ines avoided both, but took the next in the meat of her right shoulder. She was bleeding badly. I would have killed myself and everyone beneath that roof before letting myself be used in such a way. You're being used now, Ines replied. Van Eyck isn't worthy of your skill. If you must know, Pekka Rollins pays my wages, said the girl, and Ines's footsteps faltered. Rollins. He pays for my travel, my lodgings, but I ask no money for the lives I take. They are the jewels I wear. They are my glory in this world, and will bring me honor in the next. Pekka Rollins. Had he somehow found Kaz, the others? What if Nina was lying dead below? Ines had to get free of this girl. She had to help them. Another silver star came whirling at her and she bent left to avoid it, almost lost her balance. She danced backward on the wire, glimpsed another glint of silver. Pain lanced through her arm and she hissed in a breath. Our work is dark and it is holy. What dark god did this mercenary serve? Ines imagined some vast deity looming above the city, faceless and featureless, skin taut over its swollen limbs, fattened on the blood of its acolytes' victims. She could feel its presence, the chill of its shadow. A star lodged in Ines's shin, another in her forearm. She glanced over her shoulder. Only 10 more feet and she would be at the first silo. Dunyasha might know more about fighting than Ines ever would, but she didn't know Caradum. Ines would race to the bottom of the silo, find Nina. They'd lose this monster in the streets and canals Ines knew so well. Again, she gauged the distance behind her, just a few more feet. But when she looked back, Dunyasha was no longer on the wire. Ines saw her bend, saw her hand reach for the magnet. Protect me, she whispered to her saint. The line went slack, and Ines fell, twisting in the air the way she had as a child, searching for her wings. What? That's end of chapter 20. Okay. What a fucking cliffhanger to leave us off now there. What the fuck? Now we're back to Kaz though. And Kaz has the actual Pekka Rollins in front of him.
So let's see how that goes. Break time after chapter. Maybe after the next chapter. You okay? I'm good. I think. For now. But we could definitely do a little break after the next chapter. Okay. Kaz heard a roaring in his ears. As always, he experienced a strange kind of doubling when he looked at Rollins. As if he'd been up too late and had far too much to drink. The man before him was Pekka Rollins, king of the barrel, gang lord, and impresario. Wait, what? Impresario. Okay, there we go. But he was also Jakob Hertzun, the supposedly upstanding merch who had fed Kaz and Jordi on comfort and confidence, and taken their money and left them helpless in a city that put no value on mercy. Any sign of the respectable Jakob Hertzun was gone tonight. Rollins wore a green striped waistcoat snugly buttoned over the beginnings of a gut and trousers with an emerald sheen. Apparently he'd replaced the watch Cass had stolen from him because he took out a new one and glanced at it now. "This thing never keeps time quite right," Rollins said, giving the watch a shake. His sideburns quivering slightly as he breathed an exasperated sigh. "But I can't resist a fine bit of shine. Don't suppose you kept the one you took off me?" Cass said nothing. "Well," Rollins continued with a shrug, snapping the watch shut and returning it to his waistcoat pocket. "Right about now, my lieutenants should be pounding up your crew and a certain priceless hostage at Blackveil Island." Wylan released a distressed sound. "I've also prepared something special for the Wraith," said Rollins. "An extraordinary asset, that girl. I didn't like the thought of the peculiar arrow in your quiver. I found someone even more extraordinary to take care of her." A sick sensation settled in Cass's stomach. He thought of Inesh rolling her shoulders, the tidy frame of her body brimming with confidence. "I don't work with Annette." If I can recommend a book, it would definitely be Striker. That sounds interesting. The next book is already planned. I just need to grab it. The one that we're going to be reading after this is called The Fragile Threads of Power, which is a continuation of another book series we read before. "Did you really think you'd be that hard to find, Brekka? I've been at this game a long time. All I had to do was think what I'd have done when I was younger and more foolish." Roaring in Kaz's ears grew louder. "You're working for Vanek." He'd known it was a possibility, but he'd ignored it. He thought that if he moved fast enough, they wouldn't have time to form an alliance. "I'm working with Vanek. After you came to me looking for cash, I had a feeling you might have need of my service." He was hesitant at first. Hadn't had the best luck making deals with barrel boys. But that little stunt you pulled with his wife drove him right into my loving arms. I told Vanek you'd always be a step ahead of him because he can't help thinking like a businessman. Kaz nearly flinched. Hadn't he had the very same thought? "He's a savvy one, no doubt," continued Rollins, "but a man of limited imagination. Whereas you, Brecker, think like a villainous little thug. You're me with a lot more hair and a lot less style.
Vanek thought he had you all tied up on West Stave. Felt pretty good about calling in the Stadtwatch too. But I knew you'd be more slippery than that. And you knew I'd come here. Rollins chuckled. I knew you couldn't resist it. I didn't know what plan you'd conduct, but I knew whatever scheme you devised would bring you here. You couldn't pass up the chance to humiliate Vanek, to take back what you think he owes you. The deal is the deal. Rollins shook his head, clucking like a big mother hen. You think you take things too personally, Brecker. You should be focused on the job, but you're too busy holding a grudge. That's where you're wrong, said Cass. I don't hold a grudge. I cradle it, I coddle it, I feed it fine cuts of meat and send it to the best schools. I nurture my grudges, Rollins. I'm glad you kept your sense of humor, lad. Once you've served your term in Stir, assuming Vanek lets you live, I might just let you come work for me. Shame to see a talent like yours go to waste. I'd rather be cooked slow on a spit with Vanek turning the handle. Rollins' smile was magnanimous. I imagine it can be arranged too. I'm nothing if not accommodating. Just keep talking, Cass urged silently, his hand slipping inside Wyland's satchel. What makes you think Vanek will honor his agreement with you any more than he did with us? Because I have the sense to get cash up front, and my demands are decidedly more moderate. A few million Kruger to rid the barrel of the nuisance I'd like to see gone anyway? More reasonable. Most reasonable. Rollins hooked his thumb into his waistcoat. Fact is, Vanek and I understand each other. I'm expanding, growing my territory, thinking bigger. The Kalish Prince is the finest establishment East Stave has ever seen, and it's only the beginning. Vanek and I are builders. We want to create something that outlasts us. You'll grow into it, boy. Now hand over that seal and come quietly, why don't you? Cass pulled the seal from his pocket, held it up, letting it catch the lamplight, drawing Pekka's gaze. He hesitated. Come on now, Brecker. You're tough, I confess. But I've got you cornered and outnumbered. You can't make the drop from that window, and Vanek has stopwatch lining the street below. You're done for. Toasted, swinging in the wind. So don't do anything foolish. But if you couldn't open the door, you just had to make a new one. Rollins was easy to get talking. In fact, Cass doubted he could stop him if he wanted to. Then it was just a question of keeping Rollins' eyes on the shiny golden seal in Cass's right hand while he opened the jar of auric acid with the left. Get ready, he murmured. Cass, Wyland protested. And then Cass tossed the seal to Rollins and in the same motion splashed the remaining acid on the floor. The room filled with heat and the carpet hissed as a plume of auric smoke, acrid smoke, rose from it. What the fuck? Stop them! Rollins shouted. See you on the other side, said Cass. He grabbed his cane and smashed it into the boards beneath their feet, and the floor gave way with a groan. They crashed through the first floor in a cloud of plaster and dust, right onto a dinner table that collapsed beneath their weight. Candlesticks and dishes went rolling. Cass sprang to his feet, cane in his hand, gravy dripping from his coat, and then hauled Wyland up beside him. He had a brief moment to register the startled expressions of the merchants around the table, their mouths wide with shock, napkins still in their laps. Then Vanek was screaming, "Seize them!" And Kaz and Wylan were leaping over a fallen ham and sprinting down the black and white tiled hall. Two liveried guards stepped in front of the glass paneled doors that opened onto the back garden, lifting their rifles. Kaz put on a spurt of speed and dropped into a slide. He braced his cane horizontally across his chest and shot between the guards, letting the cane bash into their shins, knocking them from their feet. Wylan trailed after him, tumbling down the stairs into the garden. They were at the boathouse, over the railing and into the gondol Roddy had kept waiting in the canal. What a crazy escape for now. What the fuck? A bullet pinged to the side of the boat as gunfire peppered the water around them. He and Roddy seized their oars. "Drop heavy," Cass shouted, and Wylan let loose with every rocket, flash bomb, and bit of demo he'd been able to fit in the boat. The sky above the Vanek house exploded in an array of light, smoke, and sound as the guards dove for cover. Cass put his arms to work, feeling the boat slide into the current as they passed into the glittering traffic of the Gelt Canal. "In and out with him ever knowing," said Roddy. "I was half right," growled Cass. "We have to warn the others," Wylan gasped. "Rollins said..." "Rollins was there?" Roddy asked, and Cass heard the fear in his voice. The canal rat would take on 1,000 thugs and thieves, merchants and mercenaries, but not Pekka Rollins. Kaz tipped one of his oars, steering the boat starboard and barely missing a rowboat full of tourists. "We have to go to the Black Veil. The others." "We have to go to the Black Veil. The others..." "Shut up, Wylan, I need to think." Jesper and Matthias were both good in a fight. If anyone had a chance of getting Kuwei off Black Veil, they did. But how had Pekka found them? Someone must have been followed to the island. They had all taken risks that day, ventured away from Black Veil. Any one of them might have been spotted and pursued. Nina and Matthias? Wylan and Jesper? Kaz himself? Once Pekka had located the hideout, he would have kept them under surveillance every minute, just waiting for them to separate and make themselves vulnerable. Kaz flexed his shoulders, and Roddy matched his pace, the strokes of their oars driving the boat forward faster through the current. He needed to get them into traffic and as far away from Vanek's house as possible. He needed to get to Sweet Reef. Rollins' men would have followed Inesh and Nina there from Black Veil. Why had he sent them to the silos alone? Nina and her precious refugees. There would be no grand rescue for the Grisha tonight. All their chances were shot to hell. He also prepared something special for the Wraith. To hell with revenge, to hell with his schemes. If Rollins had done something to Inesh, Cass would paint East Stave with his entrails. Think. When one plan was blown, he made a new one. When they backed you into a corner, he cut a hole into the roof. They couldn't fix something he couldn't catch hold of. The plan had gone slippery. He'd failed them. He'd failed her. All because he seemed to have some kind of blind spot where Pekka Rollins was concerned. Jesper could be dead already. Inesh could be bleeding on the streets of Sweet Reef. He turned his oars. "We're getting to the warehouse district." "What about the others?" "Jesper and Matthias are fighters, and there's no way Pekka is going to risk harming Kuwei. We're going to Sweet Reef." You said we'd be safe from Black Veil, Wyland protested. You said...
There's no safe, Cass snarled. Not in a barrel. Not anywhere. He threw his strength into rowing. No seal, no ship, their money spent. What do we do now? Wyland said quietly, his voice barely audible above the sound of the water and the other boats on the canal. Pick up a pair of oars and make yourself useful, said Cass. I'll put your pampered ass in the drink and let your father fish you out. All right. That's the end of chapter 21. That didn't go so well for Kaz. He seems a bit pissed. You know, just a little bit. God damn. That is insane. I am thoroughly enjoying this book. Like, holy shit, it's so good. But yeah, we're gonna take a little break here real quick. I'm gonna grab some water because I already drank all my tea. Maybe grab a little snack or something, and then we'll be back shortly.
All right, I'm back. This book is constantly surprising me more and more. It's getting fucking crazy. I just want to know what's going, like, okay, so Cass's plan did not go as planned. He doesn't have the seals now, so he cannot make the Grisha refugee document. Inej is currently basically falling into her death, I guess, in a way. What else? We don't know what happened to Nina. We know that Matthias, Jesper, and Kuwei are on the run as well. So, fucking hell, there's a lot of shit going on. Let's continue then. Chapter 22. Nina heard them before she saw them. She was positioned between the second and third silos, where she could watch Inej's progress and keep an eye on the guardhouse. Inej had climbed the silo like a tiny, nimble spider, moving at a pace that made Nina tired just watching her. The angle was steep enough that she could barely see Inej once she'd reached the top, so Nina couldn't tell what progress she was making with the hatch. But Inej didn't start crossing when Nina gave the first signal. So she must have had some delay with the lines or with the weevil. At the second signal, Nina saw her step out over nothing. For when Nina waited, the high wire was invisible in the dark, and it looked as if Inej was levitating, each step precise, considered. There, the faintest wobble. Now a small correction. Nina's heart beat a skittering rhythm as she watched. She had the absurd feeling that if she let her own focus waver for even a second, Inej might fall. As if Nina's concentration and faith were helping keep her aloft. When Inej finally reached the second silo, Nina wanted to cheer, but she settled for a brief, silent dance. Then she waited for the guards to come into the view of the western side of the perimeter. They stopped at the guardhouse for a few minutes and set out again. Nina was about to signal Inej when she heard the sound of rowdy laughter. The guards noticed too, suddenly alert. Nina saw one of them ignite the signal lantern atop the guardhouse to call reinforcements. A precautionary measure in case of trouble. Riots had been known to happen, and with the chaos in West Stave the previous day, Nina wasn't surprised the guards were quick to call for help. It seemed they might need it. Nina knew a crew of barrel thugs when she saw one. And this seemed like a nasty lot, all of them large, thickly muscled, and heavily armed. Most of them had guns, a sure sign they were looking for more than a scuffle. The one on the lead wore a checked waistcoat across his broad chest and was swinging a chain in his hands. On his forearm, Nina could see a circular tattoo. She couldn't make out the details from the distance, but she could have bet good money that it was the lion curled into a crown. A dime lion's. Becca Rollins' boys, What the hell were they doing here? Nina glanced up. Inesh would be putting the Weevil into the second silo. Hopefully she was out of their view. But just what did Pekka's gang want? The answer came moments later. But there was a hot render hiding out in Sweet Reef, said the boy in the checked waistcoat loudly, still swinging that chain. Oh, saints, that's bad. Had the Dime Lions followed her and Inesh from Black Veil? Were the others in trouble? What if Pekka Rollins and his gang knew about the Grisha at the embassy? Some of them were violating their indentures by trying to leave the city. It could be blackmailed or worse. Pekka could sell them to the Shu. Stop worrying about saving the world and save your own ass. Sometimes her inner voice could be very wise. One of the silo guards stepped forward, rather bravely, Nina thought, given the Dime Lions' show of force. She couldn't make out their exchange. A paper with a vibrant red seal changed hands. The guard gave it to his companion to read. After a moment, he shrugged, and then, to Nina's horror, the guard stepped forward and unlocked the gate. The lantern on the roof of the guardhouse flashed again, and they were calling off the reinforcements. Red seal, Van Eck's color. These were his silos, and there was no way the guards would risk opening the gate for anyone their employer hadn't sanctioned. The implications made her head spin. Could Jan Van Eck and Pella Rollins be working together? If so, the Dreg's chances of getting out of this city alive had just turned to crumbs on a cake plate. Come on out, sweet Nina. Pekka's got work for you. Nina saw that the chain the boy was swinging had a heavy manacle at the end. When she'd first come to Catterdom, Pekka Rollins had offered her employment and his dubious protection. She'd chosen to sign with the Dregs instead. It seemed Pekka was done abiding by contracts or the laws of the gangs. He was going to clap her in chains, maybe sell her to the Shu, or offer her up to Van Eck so that he could dose her with Perem. Nina was sheltered in the shadows of the second silo, but there was absolutely no way for her to move more than a few paces without exposing herself. She thought of the poison pill in her pocket. Don't make us come get you, girl. The boy was gesturing for the other Dime Lions to fan out. Nina figured she had two advantages. First, the shackle at the end of the chain meant Pekka probably wanted her alive. He wouldn't want to sacrifice a valuable Grisha hot render, so they wouldn't shoot. Second, this assembly of geniuses didn't know that Perem had disrupted her powers. She might be able to buy herself and Inesh some time. Nina shook out her hair, summoned every bit of her courage, and strolled into the open. Instantly, she heard the sound of triggers cocking. Easy now, she said, planting a hand on the hip. I'm not going to be much good to Pekka if you plug me full of holes like the top of a salt shaker. Well, hello, Grisha girl. You're gonna make this fun for us? What's your name, handsome? The boy smiled, revealing a gold tooth and a surprisingly charming dimple. Eamon. That's a nice Kaelish name. Kenya home. Ma was Kaelish. I don't speak that gibber. Well, how about you get your friends here to relax and load those weapons so I can teach you some new words? I don't think so. I know the way them hot render powers work and not letting you get hold of my insides. Shame, said Nina. Listen, Eamon, there's no need for trouble tonight. I just want to know Pekka's terms. If I'm going to cross paths, I need to know the pain is worth the price. Casper's good as dead, darling, and Pekka ain't offering no terms. You're coming with us in chains or out. Nina raised her arms and saw the men around her stiffen, ready to fire, regardless of Pekka's orders. She turned the movement into a lazy stretch. Eamon, you do know that before you clap me in those chains, I could turn half these gens' internal organs to goo. You're not fast enough. I'm fast enough to make sure you never... Eyes gave a meaningful slide below his belt buckle. Raise a flag on West Stave again. Now Eamon paled. You can't do that. Nina cracked her knuckles. Can't I? The soft clang sounded from somewhere above them, and they all pointed their guns skyward. Damn it, Ines, keep quiet. But when Nina looked up, her thoughts stuttered to a terrified halt. Ines was back on the wire, and she wasn't alone. For a moment, Nina thought she might be hallucinating as she watched the figure in white follow Ines onto the wire. She looked like a phantom floating in the air above them. And then she hurled something through the air. Nina caught a glint of metal. She didn't see hit. She saw... She saw Inesh's steps falter. Ines righted herself, her posture ruthless, arms extended for balance. There had to be a way to help her. Nina reached out to the girl in white with her power, searching for her pulse, the fiber of her muscles, something that she could control. But again, it was that terrible blindness, that nothingness. Not gonna help your friend, Eamon said. She can manage for herself, Nina said. And Eamon smirked. You're not nearly as tough as we heard. Big talk, no action. He turned to his crew. I buy drinks all nights for the first one to grab her. They didn't rush her. They weren't foolish enough for that. They advanced slowly, guns raised. Nina threw her hands up, and they stopped, wary. But when nothing happened, she saw them exchange glances, a few smiles. And now they were coming faster, losing their fear, ready to take their reward. Nina, wrist glanced upward. Ines was still somehow keeping her balance. She seemed to be attempting to make her way to the first silo. But she'd clearly been injured and her walk was unsteady. The net. But it was no good to Nina alone. If she had a bit of parem, just a taste of it, she could force those big idiots to help her. They'd obey her without thinking. Her mind reached out, grasping for something, anything. She could not just stand here helpless to be taken captive and watch Ines die. But all she felt was a great black void. There were no convenient bone shards, no dust to seize. The world that had once teemed with life, with heartbeats, breath, the rush of blood, had been stripped bare. It was all black desert, starless sky, and barren earth. One of the dime lions rushed forward, and then they were all lunging at her, grabbing onto her arms, dragging her toward Eamon, whose face split with a grin, his dimple curving in a half moon. Nina released a howl of pure rage, thrashing like a wild animal. She was not helpless, she refused to be. I know no fiercer warrior's powers or not. And she felt it. There, in that black desert, a pocket of cold so deep it burned. There, past the silos, in the wedge of the canal and the way to the harbor, The sick boat, piled high with bodies. A throb of recognition pulsed through her. She didn't sense heartbeats or blood flow, but she could feel something else, something other. She thought of the bone shards, remembered the comfort she'd felt on Black Veil surrounded by graves. Eamon tried to clap one of the shackles onto the wrist. "Let's put the collar on her too," another Dimelion shouted. She felt a hand in her hair, her head wrenched back to expose her neck. Nina knew what she was thinking was madness, but she was out of sane choices. With all her remaining strength, she kicked hard at Eamon, breaking his grip. She threw her arms out in a wide arc, focusing the strange new awareness, and she felt the bodies on the barge rise. She clenched her fists. "Come to me." The Dimelion seized her wrist. Eamon struck her across the mouth, but she kept her fists clenched, her mind focused. This wasn't the exhilaration she'd felt on Parem. That had been heat, fire, light. This was a cold flame, one that burned low and blue. She felt the corpses rise, one after another, answering her call. Nina was conscious of hands on her, chains being lashed around her wrist, but the cold was deeper now, a fast-flowing winter river, black rapids jagged with broken ice. Nina heard screaming, the rattle of gunfire, and then the twist of metal. The hands on her loosened, and the chains hit the cobblestones with an almost musical jangle. Nina drew her arms toward her, plunging further into the cold of the river. "What the hell?" said Eamon, turning toward the guardhouse. "What the hell?" The Dimelions were backing up now. Mission forgotten, terror on their faces, and Nina could exactly see why. A line of people were pushing on the fence, rocking it on its posts. Some were old, some young, but all of them were beautiful. Cheeks flushed, lips rosy, hair bright with shine and moving in waves around their faces with the gentle sway of something that grew underwater. Nina felt a wave of nausea overtake her. She felt strange and a little shameful, as if she was looking into a window she had no right to peek through. But she was out of options, and the truth was she did not want to stop. She flexed her fingers. The fence crashed forward in a harsh screech of tearing metal. The Dimelions opened fire, but the corpses kept coming without interest or fear. "It's her!" Eamon screamed, stumbling backward, falling, dragging himself into his knees as his men fled into the night. "They're coming for the Grisha bitch!" "Bet you're wishing we'd had that talk now," Nina growled, but she didn't care about the Dimelions. She looked up. Inesh was still on the wire, but the girl in white was on the roof of the second silo and was reaching for the clamp. "Annette," she demanded, "now!" The corpses moved in a blurry burst of speed, rushing forward and then suddenly halting, as if awaiting instruction. She gathered her concentration and willed them to obey, shoving all her strength and life into their bodies. In seconds, they had the net in their hands and they were running so fast Nina could not track them. The high wire went slack and Inesh fell. Nina screamed. Inesh's body struck the net, bounced high, struck the net again. Nina ran to her. "Inesh!" Her body lay in the center of the net, poked by wicked silver stars, blood oozing from the wounds. Set her down, Nina commanded, and the corpses obeyed, lowering the net into the paving stones. Nina stumbled to Inesh's side and went to her knees. Inesh? Oh my god, they saved Inesh. Holy shit. What a close fucking call. Holy shit. That is... That is crazy. Okay. Inesh threw her arms around Nina. Never, ever do that again, Nina sobbed. Annette, said a merry voice. Seems unfair. Inesh stiffened. The girl in white had reached the bottom of the second silo and was striding toward them. Nina's arms shot out and the corpses stepped in front of her and Inesh. You sure you want this fight, Snowflake? The girl narrowed her beautiful eyes. I bested you, she said to Inesh. You know I did. You had a good night, Inesh replied, but her voice sounded weak as worn thread. The girl looked at the army of decaying bodies arrayed before her, appeared to assess her odds. She bowed. We'll meet again, Wraith. She turned in the direction Eamon and the rest of the Dime Lions had fled, vaulted over the remnants of the fence, and was gone. Someone likes drama, Nina said. I mean, really, who wears white to a knife fight? Dunyasha, the white blade of something or other. She really wants to kill me. Possibly everyone. Can you walk? Inesh nodded, though her face looked ashen. Nina, are these people... Are they dead? When you put it that way, it sounds creepy. You didn't use... No parem. I don't know what this is. Can Grisha even... I don't know. Now that the fear of the ambush and Inesh's fall were abating, she felt a kind of disgust. What had she just done? What had she tampered with? Nina remembered asking one of her teachers at the little palace where Grisha power came from. She'd been little more than a child then, awed by the older Grisha who came and went from the palace grounds on important missions. Our power connects us to life in ways ordinary people can never understand, her teacher had said. That's why using our gift makes us stronger instead of depleting us. We are tied to the power of creation itself, the making at the heart of the world. For Corporal Key, the bond is woven even more tightly because we deal in life and the taking of it. The teacher had raised his hands and Nina felt her pulse slow, just slightly. The other students had released gasps and looked around at one another, all of them experiencing the same thing. Do you feel that? The teacher asked. All your hearts beating in shared time, bound by the rhythms of the world. It had been the strangest sensation, the feeling of her body dissolving as if there were not many students wriggling in their classroom chairs, but one creature with a single heart, a single purpose. It had lasted only moments, but she'd never forgotten that sense of connection, the sudden understanding that her power would mean she was never alone. But the power she'd used tonight, it was nothing like that. It was a product of Parem, not the making at the heart of the world. It was a mistake. There would be time to worry later. We need to get out of here, Nina said. She helped Inej to her feet and then looked at the bodies surrounding them. Saints, they smell awful. Nina, what if they can hear you? Can you hear me? She asked. But the corpses did not respond, and when she reached out to them with her power, they didn't feel alive. There was something here, though. Something that spoke to her in a way the living no longer could. She thought again of the icy river. She could still feel it around her, around everything, but now it moved in slow eddies. What are you doing with them? Asked Inej. What are you going to do with them? Asked Inej. Nina gave a helpless shrug. Put them back where they are, I suppose. She raised her hands. Go, she told them as clearly as she could. Be at rest. They moved again, a sudden flurry that brought a prayer into Inej's lips. Nina watched them fade, dim shapes in the dark. Inej gave a slight shudder and then plucked a spiked silver star from her shoulder and let it drop to the ground with a loud clink. The bleeding seemed to have slowed. She definitely needed bandages. Let's go before the Statvat shows up, she said. Where? Nina asked as they were out of the canal. As they set out for the canal. Pekka Rollins found us. Inej's steps slowed as reality set in. Black Veil is compromised. Cass told me where to go if things went sour, but the words hung in the air between them. Pekka Rollins entering the field meant much more than a foiled plan. What if Black Veil was blown? What if something had happened to Matthias? Would Pekka Rollins spare his life or simply shoot first and claim his bounty? Grisha. What if Pekka had followed Jesper and Matthias to the embassy? What if they'd set out for the docks with the refugees and been captured? Again, she thought of the yellow pill in her pocket. She thought of Tamar's ferocious golden eyes, Zoya's imperious gaze, Yenya's teasing laugh. They had trusted her. If something had happened to them, she would never forgive herself. As Nina and Inej traced their steps back to the quay where their boat was moored, she spared one glance at the barge where the last of the corpses was lying down, shifting into place. They looked different now, their color returning to the ashy gray and mottled white that they associated with death. But maybe death wasn't just one thing. Where do we go? Nina asked. At that moment, they saw two figures racing toward them. Inej reached for her knives and Nina raised her arms, prepared to call her strange soldiers once more. She knew it would be easier this time. Kaz and Wylan appeared in the light from a street lamp, their clothes rumpled, their hair covered in bits of plaster. And it might have been gravy. Kaz was leaning heavily on his cane, his pace unrelenting, the sharp features on his face set in determined lines. We'll fight our way out together, Inej whispered. Nina glanced from Inej to Kaz and saw they both wore the same expression. Nina knew that look. It came after the shipwreck, when the tide moved against you and the sky had gone dark. It was the first sight of land, the hope of shelter and even salvation that might await you on a distant shore. And that's chapter 22 done.
Holy shit. Did I hear German? No, you did not. Like, and the German redeem is off today. We're reading. I don't want to get disrupted by the German. But how's it going, Blake? Sleepy. I felt that yesterday. I only had like 3 hours of sleep, but tonight I'm definitely feeling better. And this book is just so insane. I'm loving it. Damn, of course. Now the ads are starting. Alright, and I'm just gonna wait until the ads are over until before we go into chapter 23. Yeah, like, God, the last few chapters have been super insane, and I am loving it. I'm trying to predict where I think the book would go, but at this point, I have no freaking idea anymore. Like, what the hell? It could go anywhere at this point. It's like catching me off guard with every fucking twist, all the surprises every time, but it's just so good. But let's continue. How many pages are we in at this point? We're at page 315. Okay. All right. Well, chapter 23 is Wyland's perspective again. I'm going to die and there will be no one to help her. No one to even remember Maria Hendricks. Wyland wanted to be brave, but he was cold and bruised. And worse, he was surrounded by the bravest people he knew, and all of them seemed badly shaken. They made slow progress through the canals, pausing under bridges and in dark wells of shadow to wait as squads which boots thundered overhead or along the waterways. They were out in force tonight, their boats cruising along slowly,
bright lanterns at their prows. Something had changed in a short time since the showdown on Goodman Bridge. The city had come alive and it was angry. The Grisha, Nina had attempted, but Cass had cut her off quickly. They were either safe at the embassy or beyond our help. They can fend for themselves. We're going to ground. And then Wylan knew just how much trouble they were in because Nina hadn't argued. She'd simply put her head in her hands and gone silent. "They'll be all right," said Inesh, placing an arm around her shoulders. "He will be all right." But her movements were tentative, and Wylan could see blood on her clothes. After that, no one spoke a word. Cass and Roddy rowed only sporadically, steering them into the quieter, narrower canals, letting them drift silently whenever possible, until they rounded a bend near Seanstrad, and Cass said, "Stop." He and Roddy dug in their oars, bringing them flush with the side of the canal, tucked behind the bulk of a vendor's boat. Whatever the floating shop sold, its stalls had been locked tight to protect its stock. Up ahead, they could see Statvatch swarming over a bridge, two of their boats obscuring the passage beneath. "They're setting up blockades," said Cass. They ditched the boat there and continued on foot. Wylan knew they were headed to another safe house, but Cass had said it himself. There is no safe. Where could they possibly hide? Becca Rollins was working with Wylan's father. Between them, they had to own half the city. Wylan would be captured, and then what? No one would believe he was Jan van Eyck's son. Wylan van Eyck might be despised by his father, but he had rights no true criminal could hope for. Would he end up in Hellgate? Would his father find a way to see him executed? As they got farther from the manufacturing district in the Barrow, the patrols dwindled, and Wylan realized the Statvatch must be concentrating the efforts of the less respectable parts of town. Still, they moved in fits and starts, passing along alleys Wylan had never known existed, occasionally entering empty storefronts or the lower levels of unoccupied apartments so they could cut through the next street. It was as if Cass had a secret map to Catadam that showed the city's forgotten spaces. Would Jesper be waiting when they finally got wherever they were going? Or was he lying wounded and bleeding on the floor of the tomb with no one to come to his aid? Wylan refused to believe it. The worse the odds, the better Jesper was in a fight. He thought of Jesper pleading with calm. "I know I let you down, just give me one more chance." Often had Wylan spoken almost the same words to his father, hoping every time that he could make good on them. Jesper had to survive. They all did. Wylan remembered the first time he'd seen the sharpshooter. It seemed like a creature from another world, dressed in lime green and lemon yellow, his stride long and loping, as if every step was poured from a bottle with a narrow neck. On Wylan's first night in the Barrow, he'd wandered from street to street, certain that he was about to be robbed, teeth chattering from the cold. Finally, when his skin was turning blue and he couldn't feel his fingers, he'd summoned the courage to ask a man smoking his pipe on the front of the steps of a house, "Do you know where there might be rooms for rent?" "The sign there says vacancy," he said, gesturing across the street with his pipe. "What are you, blind?" "Must have missed it," Wylan said. The boarding house was filthy, but blessedly cheap. He'd rented a room for 10 Kluge and had also paid for a hot bath. He knew he needed to save his money, but if he contracted lung fever the first night, he'd have problems beyond being short of cash. He took the little towel in the bathroom at the end of the hall and washed up quickly. Though the water was hot enough, he felt vulnerable crouching naked in a tub with no lock on the door. He dried his clothes as best as he could, but they were still damp when he put them back on. Wyland spent that night lying on a paper-thin mattress, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of the rooming house around him. On the Gelt Canal, the nights were so silent you could hear the water lapping against the sides of the boathouse. But here might as well have been noon. Music flooded in through the dirty window. People were talking, laughing, slamming doors. The couple in the room above him were fighting. The couple in the room below him were definitely doing something else. German? No German today. Kara, I'm sorry. But not during reading. Black said German. Yeah, but I didn't do any German and I won't do any German. Wyland touched his fingers to the bruises at his throat and thought, I wish I could ring for tea. That was the moment he really began to panic. How much more pathetic could he be? His father had tried to have him killed. He had almost no money and was lying on a cot that reeked of the chemicals they'd used to try to rid the mattress of lice. Back to HSR. Wow. I hope you're having fun with HSR though. I know I'm just background noise today. It's okay. Still lurking, don't worry. I know. Trying to get Jade's ID. I do too. I really have to as well. I need to grind more. Maybe we'll play some HSR when I'm done with the book for today. I don't know. His father had tried to have him killed. He had almost no money and was lying on a cot that reeked of the chemicals they used to try to rid of the lice. He should be making a plan, maybe even plotting revenge, trying to gather his wits and his resources. And what was he doing? Wishing he could ring for tea. He might not have been happy at his father's house, but he never had to work for anything. He'd had servants, hot meals, clean clothes. Whatever it took to survive the barrel, Wyland knew he didn't have it. And as he lay there, he sought some explanation for what had happened. Surely Mixon and Pryor were to blame. His father hadn't known, or maybe Mixon and Pryor had misunderstood his father's orders. It had just been a terrible mistake. Wyland rose and reached into the damp pocket of his coat. His enrollment papers to the music school in Belland were still there. As soon as he drew out the thick envelope, he knew his father was guilty. It was soaked through and smelled of canal, but its color was pristine. No ink had bled through from the supposed documents inside. Wyland opened the envelope anyway. The sheaf of folded papers clung together in a wet lump, but he pried each of them apart. They were all blank. His father hadn't even bothered with a convincing ruse. He'd known Wyland wouldn't try to read the papers, and that his gullible son would never think to suspect his father of lying. Pathetic. Wyland had stayed inside for 2 days, terrified. But on the third morning, he'd been so hungry that the smell of frying potatoes wafting up from the streets had driven him from the safety of his room. He bought a paper cone full of them and scarfed them down so greedily he burned his tongue. Then he made himself walk. He had only enough money to keep his room for another week, less if he planned on eating. He needed to find work, but he had no idea where to begin. He wasn't big enough or strong enough for a job in a warehouse or shipyards. The softer jobs would require him to read. Was it possible one of the gambling dens or even one of the pleasure houses needed a musician to play in their parlors? He still had his flute. He walked up and down East Stave and along the more well-lit side streets. When it started to get dark, he returned to the boarding house, thoroughly defeated. The man with the pipe was still on his steps smoking. As far as Wylan knew, he never left the perch. "I'm looking for a job," Wylan said to him. "Do you know anyone who might be hiring?" The man peered at him through a cloud of smoke. "Young dollop of cream like you should be able to make fine coin on West Stave." "Honest work." The man had laughed until he started hacking, but eventually he directed Wylan south to the tanneries. Wylan was paid a scraping wage for mixing dyes and cleaning the vats. The other workers were mostly women and children, a few scrawny boys like him. They spoke a little, too tired and too ill from the chemicals to do more than complete their work and collect their pay. They were given no gloves or masks, and Wylan was fairly sure he'd be dead of poisoning before he ever had to worry about where he should go with the tiny bit of money he was earning. One afternoon, Wylan heard the dye chief complaining that they were losing gallons of dye to evaporation because the boilers ran too hot. He was cursing over the cost he'd paid to have two of them fixed and how little good it had done. Wylan hesitated and then suggested adding seawater to the tanks. "Why the hell would I want to do that?" said the dye chief. "It will raise the boiling point," said Wylan, wondering why he thought it was a good idea to speak at all. The dyes still have to get hotter to boil. The dyes will have to get hotter to boil, so you'll lose less to evaporation. You'll have to tweak the formula because the saline will build up fast. But you'll have to clean tanks more regularly because the salt can be corrosive. The dye chief had merely spat a stream of Yoda onto the floor and ignored him. But the next week, they tried using salt water in one of the tanks. A few days later, they were using a mixture of seawater in all of them, and the dye chief started coming to Wylan with more questions. How could they keep the red dye from stiffening the hides? How could they shorten processing and drying times? Could Wylan make a resin to keep the dyes from bleeding? A week after that, Wylan had been standing at the vats with his wooden paddle, woozy from the dyes, eyes watering, wondering if helping the dye chief meant he could request a raise, when a boy approached him. He was tall, lanky, his skin a deep zemeni brown, and looked ridiculously out of place on the dyeing floor. Not just because of his lime-plaid waistcoat and yellow trousers, but because he seemed to exude pleasure, as if there was no place he'd rather be than a miserable, foul-smelling tannery, as if he'd just walked into a party he couldn't wait to attend. Though he was skinny, his body fit together with a kind of loose-limbed ease. The dye chief didn't usually like strangers on the dyeing floor, but he didn't say a word to this boy with the revolver slung across his hips. Just tipped his hat respectfully and went scurrying off. Wylan's first thought was that this boy had the most perfectly shaped lips he'd ever seen. His second was that his father had sent someone new to kill him. He gripped his paddle. Would the boy shoot him in broad daylight? Did people just do that? The boy said, "You didn't know your way around the chemistry set." "What? Yes, a bit," Wylan had managed. "Just a bit." Wylan had the sense that his next answer was very important. "I have a background." He'd taken to science and math and pursued them diligently, hoping they might somehow compensate for his other failings. The boy handed Wylan a folded piece of paper. "Then come to this address when you get off work tonight." Good job for you. He looked around, as if just noticing the vats and the pallet laborers bent over them. A real job. Wylan had stared at the paper. The letters a tangle in front of his eyes. I don't know where this is. The boy gave an exasperated sigh. You're not from here, are you? Wylan shook his head. Fine. I'll come catch you, because clearly I don't have anything to do with my time but squire new lilies around town. Wylan, right? Wylan nodded. Wylan what? Wylan Hendricks. You know much about Demo, Wylan Hendricks? Demo? The boom, the bang, the flint and fuzz? Wylan didn't know what he meant at all, but he felt admitting that would be a mistake. It would be a bad mistake. Sure, he said with as much confidence that he could muster. The boy cut him a skeptical glance. We'll see. Be up front at 6 belts and no guns unless you want trouble. Of course not. The boy had rolled his gray eyes and muttered, has to be out of his mind. At 6 belts, Jesper arrived to escort Wylan to a bait shop in a barrel. Wylan had been embarrassed by his rumpled clothes, but they were the only ones he owned, and a paralyzing fear that this was just some elaborate trap concocted by his father and had provided ample distraction from his worry. In the back room of the bait shop, Wylan met Kaz and Inesh. They told him they needed flash bombs and maybe something with a little more kick. Wylan had refused. That night, he arrived back at the boarding house to find the first letter. The only words he recognized were the name of the sender, Jan Vanek. He'd lain awake all night, certain that at any moment prior would smash through the door and would clamp his meaty hands around his neck. He thought about running, but he barely had enough money to pay his rent, let alone buy a ticket out of the city. And what hope did he have in the country? No one was going to hire him on a farm labor. The next day, he went to see Kaz, and that night he built his first explosive for the dregs. He knew what he was doing was illegal, but he'd made more money for a few hours' work than he made in a week at the tannery. The letters from his father continued to arrive, once, sometimes twice a week. Wylan didn't know what to make of them. Were they threats? Taunts? He stashed them in a stack beneath his mattress, and sometimes at night he thought he could feel the ink bleeding through the pages, up through the mattress and into his heart like dark poison. But the more time had passed, and the more he worked for Kaz, the less scared he felt. He'd make his money, get out of town, and never speak the name Vanek again. And if his father decided to have him done away with before then, there was nothing Wylan could do about it. His clothes were ragged and threadbare. He was getting so skinny he had to cut new holes into his belt. But he could sell himself in the pleasure houses of West Stave before he'd ask his father for his father's mercy. Wylan didn't realize it then. I hadn't realized it then, but Kaz had known his true identity all along. Dirty Hands kept tabs on anyone who took up residence in the barrel, and he placed Wylan under Dreg's protection, certain that one day a rich merchant's son would come in handy. He had no illusions about why Kaz had looked out for him, but he also never but also knew he never would have survived this long without his help. And Kaz didn't care if he could read. Kaz and the others teased him, but they'd given him a chance to prove himself. They valued the things he could do instead of punishing him for the things he couldn't. Wylan had believed that Kaz could get revenge for what had been done to his mother. He'd believed that despite his father's wealth and influence, this crew, his crew, was a match for Jan van Eyck. But now his father was reaching out to taunt him yet again. It was well past midnight when they reached the financial district. They'd arrived in one of the wealthiest areas of the city, not far from the exchange and the Stadthal. His father's presence felt closer here, and Wylan wondered why Kaz had brought them to this part of town. Kaz led them through an alley to the back of a large building, where a door had been propped open, and they entered a stairwell built around a huge iron lift. They shuffled inside. Roddy remained behind, presumably to keep watch over the entrance. The lift's gate clanged shut, and they rode 15 stories up to the building's top floor, and then emerged into a hallway laid in patterns of lacquered hardwood, its high ceilings painted a pale, foamy lavender. We're in a hotel, Wylan realized. There was the servants' entrance and the staff elevator. Yeah, that was the servants' entrance and the staff elevator. They knocked on a pair of white double doors. Calm Fahey answered, wearing a long nightshirt with a coat thrown over it. They were at the Geldrenner. The others are inside, he said wearily. Colm asked him no questions, just pointed toward the bathroom and poured himself a cup of tea as they tracked mud and misery across the purple carpets. When Matthias saw Nina, he leapt from his seat on the huge aubergine sofa and clasped her in his arms. We couldn't get through the blockades of Sweet Reeve, he said. I feared the worst. They were all hugging, and Wylan was horrified to find his eyes filling with tears. He blinked them back. The last thing he needed was for Jesper to see him cry again. The sharpshooter was covered in soot and smelled like a forest fire. But he had that wonderful glimmer-eyed look he always seemed to get when he'd been in a fight. All Wylan wanted to do was stand as close as he possibly could to him and know that he was safe. Until this moment, Wylan hadn't quite understood how much they meant to him. His father would have sneered at these thugs and thieves, a disgraced soldier, a gambler who couldn't keep out of the red. But they were his first friends, his only friends. And Wylan knew that even if he'd had his pick of 1,000 companions, these would have been the people he chose. Only Kaz stood apart, staring silently out the window to the dark streets below. Kaz, said Nina, you may not be glad we're alive, but we're glad you're alive. Come here. Leave him be, Inej murmured softly. Saints, Wraith, said Jesper, you're bleeding. Should I call a doctor? asked Jesper's father. No, they all replied in unison. Of course not, said Colm. Should I ring for coffee? Yes, please, said Nina. Colm ordered coffee, waffles, and a bottle of brandy, and while they waited, Nina enlisted their help to locate some shears so that she could cut up the hotel towels for bandages. Once a pair had been found, she took Inej to the bathroom to see to her wounds. When a knock sounded at the door, they all tensed, but it was only their meal. Colm greeted the maid and insisted that he could manage the car so that she wouldn't see the strange company that had been assembled in his room. As soon as the door closed, Jesper jumped up to help him wheel in a silver tray laden with food and stacks of dishes of porcelain so fine it was almost transparent. Wylan hadn't eaten of dishes like these since he'd left his father's house. He realized Jesper must be wearing one of Colm's shirts. It was too big in the shoulders and too short in the sleeves. "What is this place anyway?" Wylan asked, looking around the vast room decorated almost entirely in purple. "The Caterham Suite, I believe," said Colm, scratching the back of his neck. "It's considerably finer than my room at the University District Inn." Nina and Inej emerged from the bathroom. Nina heaped a plate with food and plucked down beside Matthias on the couch. She folded one of the waffles in half and took a huge bite, wiggling her toes in bliss. "I'm sorry, Matthias," she said with her mouth full. "I've decided to run off with Jesper's father. He keeps me in the deliciousness to which I have become accustomed." Inej had removed her tunic and wore only her quilted vest, leaving her brown arms bare. Strips of towel were tied at her shoulder, both of her forearms, her right thigh, and her left chin. "What exactly happened to you?" Jesper asked as he handed his father a cup of coffee on a delicate saucer. Inej perched in an armchair next to where Kuwei had settled himself on the floor. "Made a new acquaintance." Jesper sprawled onto the settee and Wylan took the other chair. A plate of waffles balanced on his knee. There was a perfectly good table and chairs in the suite's dining room, but apparently none of them had an interest in it. Only Colm had taken a seat there, coffee beside him, along with a bottle of brandy. Kaz remained by the window, and Wylan wondered what he saw through the glass that was so compelling. "So," Jesper said, adding sugar to his coffee, "other than Inej making a new pal, what the hell happened out there?" "Let's see," Nina said. "Inej fell 20 stories. We put a serious hole in my father's dining room ceiling," Wylan offered. "Nina can raise the dead," said Inej. Matthias's cup clattered against his saucer. It looked ridiculous in his huge hand. "I can't raise them. I mean, they got up, but it's not like they come back to life. I don't think. I'm not totally sure." "Are you serious?" said Jesper, and Inej nodded. "I can't explain it, but I saw it." Matthias's brow was furrowed. "When we were in the Rafgan Quarter, you were able to summon those pieces of bone." Jesper took a gulp of coffee. "What about the lake house? Were you controlling the dust?" "The dust? She didn't just take out the guard, she choked him with a cloud of dust." "There's a family graveyard next to the Hendricks Lake House," said Wylan, remembering the gated plot that abutted the western wall. "What if the dust was, well, bones? People's remains?" Nina set down her plate. "It's almost enough to make me lose my appetite." She picked it up again. "Almost." This is why you asked about Param changing the Grisha's power, said Kuwait to Matthias.
Nina looked at him.
Can it? I don't know. You took the drug only once. You survived the withdrawal. You're a rarity.
Lucky me. Is it so bad? Matthias asked.
Nina plucked a few crumbs from her lap, returning them to her plate. To quote a certain big blonde lump of muscle, it's not natural. Her voice had lost its cheery warmth. She just looked sad.
Maybe it is. On the corporal key known as the Order of the Living and the Dead.
This isn't how Grisha power is supposed to work. Nina said gently. Param took you to the brink of death. Maybe you brought something back with you. Well, it's a pretty rotten souvenir.
Perhaps Dial extinguished one light and lit another, said Matthias.
Nina cast him a sidelong glance. Did you get hit on the head? He reached out and took Nina's hand. Wyland suddenly felt he was intruding on something private.
I am grateful you are alive.
This is one of those sussy, spicy books? No, it's not. It has a bit of romance in it, but it's not like sussy and spicy. They're like literally the oldest character in this group is 18. They're all teenagers. I don't want that.
I am grateful you are alive, he said. I am grateful you're beside me. I am grateful that you're eating.
She rested her head on his shoulder. You're better than waffles, Matthias Helvar. A small smile curled to Fjordan's lips.
Let's not say things we mean. We don't mean, my love.
There was a light tapping at the door. Immediately, they all reached for their weapons. Holmes had frozen in his chair. Cass gestured for him to stay where he was and moved silently toward the door, and he peered through the peephole. It's Specht, he said. They all relaxed, and Cass opened the door. They watched in silence as Cass and Specht exchanged harried whispers. Then Specht nodded and disappeared back toward the lift. Is there access to the clock tower on this floor? Cass asked Colm. At the end of the hall, said Colm. I haven't gone up. The stairs are steep. Without a word, Cass was gone. They all stared at one another for a moment and then followed, filing past Colm, who watched him go with a weary eye. As they walked down the hall, Wyland realized that the entire floor was dedicated to the luxury of the Catadum suite. If he was going to die, he supposed it wouldn't be the worst place to spend his last night. How are you doing though, Lemons? I hope you're having a good day. One by one, they climbed a twisting iron staircase to the clock tower and pushed through the trapdoor. The room at the top was large and cold, taken up mostly by the gears of a huge clock. Its four faces looked out over Catadum with the gray dawn sky. To the south, a plume of smoke rose from Blackveil Island. Looking northeast, Wyland could see the Gelt Canal boats from where the fire brigade and the stopwatch surrounding the area near his father's house. He remembered the shocked look on his father's face when they landed in the middle of his dining room table. If Wyland hadn't been so terrified, he might have well burst out laughing. It's a shame that eats men whole. If only they'd set the rest of the house on fire. Far in the distance, the harbors were teeming with stopwatch boats and wagons. The city was pocked with stopwatch purple, as if it had caught a disease. Space says they've closed the harbors and shut down the burrow boats, said Kaz. They're sealing the city. No one will be able to get in or out. Hey, Crystal, how are you doing? Damn. Not great. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear. I hope everything is okay. If you need to talk, you can always send me a message. You know where to find me. But I hope you're doing okay. And it's getting better. Canada won't stand for that, Ines said. People will riot. Don't be so nice. Why should I not be? I have no reason not to be. Like, if I can help in any way, I'm always happy to do so. Busy, I'll be fine. I can always respond later. But it's okay. If you don't want to talk about it right now, that's fine. I just hope whatever it is, it'll get better soon. Well, Canada won't stand for that, said Ines. People will riot. They won't blame Vanek. Wylan felt a little ill. They blame us. Jesper shook his head. Even if they put every stopwatch ground on the street, they don't have the manpower to lock up the city and search for us. Don't they? Said Kaz. Look again. Jesper walked to the west-facing window where Kaz was standing. Oh, the Saints and your Aunt Ava, he said on a gust of breath. What is it? Asked Wylan as they peered through the glass. A crowd was moving east from the barrel across the Zelva district. Is it a mob? Asked Ines. More like a parade, said Kaz. Why aren't the stopwatch stopping them? Wylan asked as the flood of people passed unhindered from bridge to bridge through each barricade. Why are they letting them through? Probably because your father told them so, Kaz said. As the throng drew closer, Wylan heard singing, chanting, drums. It really did sound like a parade. They poured over Zelva Bridge, streaming past the hotel as they made their way to the square that fronted the exchange. Wylan recognized Palagronen's gang leading the march. Whoever was up front wore a lion's skin with a fake golden crown sewn on its head. Razor goals, Ines said, pointing behind the dime lines. And there are the liddies. Harley's pointers, Jesper said. The black tips. It's all of them, said Kaz. What does it mean? Asked Kuwei. The purple bands. Each member of the mob below wore a strip of purple around his upper left arm. They've been deputized, said Kaz.
Fecht says word is out all over the barrel. The good news is they want us alive now, even Matthias. The bad news is they've added bounties for the Shu twins we're traveling with. So Kuwei's face and Wyland's are gracing the city walls too. And your merchant council is just sanctioning this, said Matthias. What if they start looting or there's a riot? They won't. Rollins knows what he's doing. If the Statvat had tried to lock down the barrel, the gangs would have turned on them. Now they're on the right side of the law, and Vanek has 2 armies. He's pinning us in. Inesh drew a sharp breath. What? Asked Wyland, but when he looked down at the square, he understood. The last group in the parade had come into the view. An old man wearing a plumed hat was leading them, and they were crawling at the top of their lungs. Cawing at the top of their lungs like crows. The dregs, Kaz's gang, they had turned on him. What? Okay, what the fuck? I am not okay right now. I did not expect that. What the fuck? Jesper slammed his fist against the wall. Those ungrateful skivs. Kaz said nothing, just watched the crowd flow past the front of the hotel below. The gangs bunched in colorful swarms, calling insults to one another, cheering like it was some kind of holiday. Even after they'd gone by, their chants hung in the air. Maybe they would march all the way to the Stott Hall. What happened now? Asked Kuwei. We'll be hunted by every Stadtwatch Grund and a barrel thug in this city until we're found, said Kaz. There's no way out of Ketterdam now. Certainly not with you in tow. That is fucking crazy. Can we just wait? Asked Kuwei. Here with Mr. Fahi? Wait for what? Kaz said. Someone to come to our rescue? Jesper rested his head against the glass. My father. We'll take him in too. He'll be accused of harboring fugitives. No, Kuwei said abruptly. No, give me to Vanek. Absolutely not, said Nina. The boy cut his hand through the air sharply. You saved me from the Fjordans. If we do not act, then I will be captured anyway. And all of this was for nothing? Asked Wyland, surprised at his own anger. The risks we took, what we accomplished at the ice court, everything Inej and Nina suffered to get us out? If I give myself up to Vanek, then the rest of you can go free, insisted Kuwei. It doesn't work that way, kid, said Jesper. Pekka's got his chance to take Kaz out with the rest of the barrel backing him. And Vanek sure as hell doesn't want us walking around free, not knowing what we do. This isn't just about you anymore. Kuwei moaned and slammed down against the wall. He cast a baleful glance at Nina. You should have killed me at the ice court. Nina shrugged.
Then Cass would have killed me and Matthias. But then Cass would have killed me and Matthias would have killed Cass and would have gotten incredibly messy. I believe we broke out of the ice court, but we're trapped in our own town, Wyland said. It didn't seem right. Yep, said Jesper. We are well and truly cooked. Cass drew a circle on the window with one leather gloved finger. Not quite, he said. I can get the stopwatch to stand down. Oh, said Inesh. I'll give myself up. What? But Kuwait, said Nina. Okay. The stopwatch doesn't know about Kuwait. They think they're looking for Wyland. So I'll tell them Wyland is dead. I'll tell them I killed him. Are you out of your mind? Said Jesper. Yes, said Inesh. They'll send you to the gallows. They'll have to give me a trial first. You'll rot in prison before that. You'll rot in prison before that happens, said Matthias. Fennec will never give you a chance to speak in a courtroom. You really think they've built a cell that can hold me? Fennec knows just how good you are with locks, Inesh said angrily. You'll die before you ever reach the jailhouse. This is ridiculous, said Jesper. You're not taking the fall for us. No one is. We'll split up. We'll go in pairs, find a way past the blockades, hide out somewhere in the countryside. This is my city, said Cass. I'm not leaving it with my tail between my legs. Jesper released a growl of frustration. If this is your city, what's left of it? You gave up your shares in the Crow Club and Fifth Harbor. You don't have a gang anymore. Even if you did escape, Van Eck and Rollins would stick the stopwatch and half the barrel on you again. You can't fight them all. Watch me. Damn it, Cass. What are you always telling me? Walk away from a losing hand. I am giving you a way out. Take it. Oh. Why are you treating us like a bunch of yellow-bellied skivs? Cass turned on him. You're the one getting ready to bolt, Jesper. You just want me to run with you so you don't have to feel so bad about it. For all your love of a fight, you're always the first to talk about running for cover. Because I want to stay alive? For what? Cass said, his eyes glittering. So he can play another hand at the tables, so he can find another way to disappoint your father and let down your friends. Have you told your father you're the reason he's going to lose his farm? Have you told Inesh you're the reason she almost died at the end of Omen's knife? That we all almost died? Oh my god! Jesper's shoulders bunched, but he didn't back down. I made a mistake. I let my bad get the best of my good but for Saint's sake, Cass, how long are you going to make me pay for a little forgiveness? What do you think forgiveness looks like, Jordy? Who the hell is Jordy? For the briefest moment, Cass's face went slack, a confused, almost frightened look in his dark eyes. There and gone. So fast, Wyland wondered if he'd imagined it. What do you want from me? Cass snarled, his expression just as close, just as cruel as ever. My trust? You had it, and you shot it into pieces because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. One time. How many times have I at your back in a fight. How many times have I gotten it right? Doesn't that count for anything? Jesper threw up his hands. I can't win with you. No one can. That's right. You can't win. You think you're a gambler, but you're just a born loser. Fights, cards, boys, girls. You'll keep playing until you lose. So for once in your life, just walk away. Jesper swung first. Cass dodged right, and then they were grappling. They slammed into the wall, knocked heads, drew apart in a flurry of punches and grabs. Wylan turned to Inej, expecting her to object, for Matthias to separate them, for someone to do something, but the others just backed up, making room. Only Kuwei showed any kind of distress. Jesper and Cass swung around, crashed into the mechanism of the clock, righted themselves. It wasn't a fight, it was a brawl, graceless, a tangle of elbows and fists. Gazen and his work, someone stop them! Wylan said desperately. This person shot him, Nina said. Cass isn't using his cane, said Inej. You think they can't kill each other with their bare hands? They were both bleeding. Jesper from a cut on his lip, and Cass from somewhere near his brow. Jesper's shirt was halfway over his head, and Cass's sleeve was tearing at the seam. The trapdoor sprang open, and Colm Fahey's head emerged. His ruddy cheeks went even redder. Jesper Llewellyn Fahey, that is enough, he roared. Jesper and Cass both startled, and then, to Wylan's shock, they stepped away from each other, looking guilty. Just what is going on here? Colm said. I thought you were friends. Jesper ran a hand over the dog, over the back of his neck, looking like he wanted to vanish through the floorboards. We were having a disagreement. I can see that. I have been very patient with all of this, Jesper, but I am at my limit. I want you down here before I count 10, or I will tan your hide so you don't sit for 2 weeks. Holmes had vanished back down the stairs. The silence stretched. And then Nina giggled. You are in so much trouble. Jesper scowled. Matthias, Nina, let Cornelis Smith grope her bottom. Nina stopped laughing. I'm going to turn your teeth inside out. That is physically impossible. I just raised the dead. Do you really want to argue with me? Inej cocked her head to one side. Jesper Llewellyn Fahey? Shut up, said Jesper. It's a family name. Inej made a solemn bow. Whatever you say, Llewellyn. Cass, Jesper said tentatively, but Cass was staring into the middle distance. Wylan thought he knew that look. Is that scheming face? Matthias nodded. Definitely. I know how to do it, Cass said slowly. How to get Kuwei out, get the Grisha out, get your money, beat Vanek, and give that son of a bitch Pekka Rollins everything he has coming to him. Nina raised a brow. Is that all? How? Asked Inej. This whole time, we've been playing the next game. We've been hiding. We're done with that. We're going to stage a little auction. Right out in the open. He turned to face them, and his eyes gleamed flat and black as a shark's. And since Kuwei is so eager to sacrifice himself, he's going to be the prize.
What? Hello? What the fuck? Okay. Well, I think though this might be a good point to end in the book for now, because we reached the end of part 4 of the book, so next week we can start with part 5, Kings and Queens. And also, what a fucking cliffhanger, bro. I don't know. I mean, Kaz is a crazy fucking bastard sometimes, but that plan is ridiculous. But holy shit, I'm here for it. I'm so fucking here for it. But I also think I might just end here for today. It's still crazy because like we're for me right now we're starting like an hour earlier than usual, because I'm still gonna keep it to 5 p.m. EST, which obviously means like you guys, again, you already had daylight savings. Mine is next week, so I have to start an hour early to keep up with the 5 p.m. So there's that. But yeah, no, I will probably end here for today. Yeah, we're getting ours next week, next Sunday. We'll be an hour ahead as well, so it'll be back to normal. I can start at 11 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. But yeah, going to sleepless, yay. But yeah, I hope, Crystal, whatever is still happening, whatever is going on, you're gonna feel better soon. It's been a few weeks for us. Yeah. Again, if you ever need to talk about any of it, let me know. You can always message me. I'm here for it. I'm here for you. But for now, I think we're gonna end here, so I can also keep it just the book for the VOD for the reading stream channel. And then maybe tomorrow we'll be doing some more Honkai. And then Genshin should also have their update in like 2 days. On like, I think Tuesday. This is the Genshin update. So that's a new region we can explore, some new story probably regarding the new region, and Shenyun polls. I want to try and get my Shenyun C2, hoping I finally win a 50-50. Oh great, another update I have to do. Also, Crystal, we should definitely play some Paladins soon. I'm so down to play it again. It's been a while. All I've done was the other day I just went into the training range checking out some characters, but you know, I haven't played an actual match. So I'd be totally down to do that this evening. Yeah, I don't know if I have time this evening though. We'll see what I do after the stream. I have some people in the Discord right now chilling, playing Lethal Company, so I might join them for a bit. And who knows? It's already nighttime. For me it is, yeah. Either way. Either way, Crystal, we definitely should play at some point soon. I'm super down. Maybe it can also help you distract you from whatever is going on. It's always nighttime in Crystal's bed. I can imagine. We're going on a trip. That's fine. I'm cold. Or like, who knows? Maybe we can play some later, depending on if I'm still up. I might play a little bit of Lethal, but I'll join you as well. Depending on when you want to play. I mean, Crystal, I can help you warm up. Damn, you're already laying there ready. Okay. Well, anyway. Skin to skin helps. Agreed. Oh, damn. All right. Anyway. I'm gonna be ending it now. Crystal, let me know if you still want to play today. I might hop on as well. And until then, I hope you guys have a fantastic, great rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is. And I'll probably see you either tomorrow or Tuesday for the Genshin update. Until then, love you all. Bye-bye.